Moving on to the business then, Owen Fairclough here, looking at some significant changes in language from the French government over a potential debt downgrade.
Well, you know, Stuart, a few months ago it was taboo here in France to talk about the possible collapse of the euro and indeed the whole European project. Then it was taboo to talk about France ever possibly losing its golden AAA credit rating. Not anymore. In the last few days, we've seen a small but significant shift in the language, not just from the French President Sarkozy himself, but yesterday his Foreign Minister Alain Juppé entertaining the possibility that France could lose that golden rating. And that is a significant departure, as I say, from just a few weeks ago. Of course, it all has huge ramifications for the rest of Europe should France, one of the ultimate backstops in this Eurozone crisis, lose that prize rating. William Edwards explains.
On a visit to Libya on Wednesday, French Foreign Minister Alain Juppé was also making headlines back home. He's added his voice to that of President Sarkozy, saying that a downgrade for France's AAA credit rating wouldn't be so bad.
Of course, it wouldn't be good news, but it wouldn't be disastrous either. The US, who have lost their AAA, continue to borrow on the markets at low rates.
Meanwhile, the governor of the Bank of France has come out against the ratings agencies in an interview this Thursday, calling them incomprehensible and irrational. Such fighting talk has fueled concerns that a French credit rating downgrade could be imminent. While such a move may not have an instant negative effect on France, it would cause more headaches for the Eurozone. The continent's bailout fund, known as the EFSF, depends on core Eurozone nations being able to access the markets at low rates. A downgrade could bring an end to France's cheap credit. On Wednesday, the euro hit its lowest level against the dollar since January. As well as the concerns about France's credit rating, worries persist that last Friday's Eurozone summit didn't come up with a short-term solution to the region's debt crisis.
Well, I'm sure that the EU meeting decisions are far enough on a middle and long-term track. But on a short-term track, we still have the problem of the refinancing of the countries in the southern part of Europe. So we need the help of the central banks.
So, 1 week on from the summit that was intended to save the euro, the single currency still seems as troubled as ever.
And the markets, well, they seem to be soaking up that sentiment. The Nikkei closing down again.
Yeah, 1.5% just finished trading, Stuart. The Hang Seng's having an even worse time of it this Thursday on a week when it really should be having a pretty good week. It's down nearly 2%, still going. It should have been a week when we saw some big IPOs, the likes of Chow Tai Fook, that's the world's largest jeweller by listing, supposed to make a spectacular entry onto the Hang Seng, which is supposedly the place to list these days. Actually, its share price is down by nearly 9%. On the first day of trading. I'll mention Olympus as well. Its shares down 20%. That was a day after the company managed to meet a deadline to file its accounts. You're seeing pictures there, live images of Michael Woodford, the whistleblower and the former chief executive, who blew the whistle on the whole Olympus accounting scandal. There's a lot of questions in Japanese there, so we won't run that live for you in terms of sound, but I can tell you that he has confirmed that he is very much interested in taking over this company. He said just a little earlier that he wouldn't be back in Japan where he is now if he wasn't interested in taking on Olympus.
Good timing. Owen wants to talk about Olympus. We've got live shots. There you go. Now, the markets, well, they weren't helped, really, by some new and grim figures from Greece. Its economy has contracted for the third year running. That was always forecast, but the figure, a decline of 5.5%, is the worst dip since Greece entered recession. Now, the message from international creditors is you can't tax anymore, so you must cut back even more. Katerina Vitozzi has the details.
Growing nowhere fast. Greece's Prime Minister's confirmed that 2011 will be the country's worst ever year of recession. Lucas Papademos said the country's GDP will contract over 5.5% this year. That's worse than forecast and worse than last year.
Greece finds itself in the deepest stage of the recession. We still have a lot of hard work ahead of us.
Greece is on course to receive the next €8 billion slice of its first bailout package. The money's needed to pay Greece's creditors and stop the country from a default that would affect all the Eurozone economies. The IMF, EU Commission and European Central Bank are stumping up the cash. They say tax hikes aren't working and the Greek government must slash spending instead.
In most areas, reforms are falling somewhat short of what was expected. when the program was drawn up. This is the main reason, in our view, why the economy has continued to trend down quite significantly.
Greece is entirely dependent on international financial support after it was shut out of bond markets last year. Athens officials are now working on a second bailout package for the country of some 130 billion euros.
Now, definitely small crumbs of comfort for Greece, but the only bright spot in all of that, perhaps, is that the IMF and the EU did at least give Greece another 2 billion euros, the latest round in its funding from that original 100 or so billion euro bailout. Just while we're talking Greece as well, I thought the most heartfelt plea of the day went to the Greek finance minister, Evangelos Venizelos, who took to Twitter to try and reach out, in his words, to the children and the grandchildren of Greece to actually stay in the country. Remember, there are huge numbers of Greeks leaving the country now, understandably, because the economy is so bad. Also asking Greeks to keep their money in the banks as well and stop that flight of capital we're seeing leaving Greece right now.
Very heartfelt. All right, well, we're going to stay with the Eurozone for a moment as we take in a few more of the day's headlines. First off, Commerzbank has announced it's started to shore up its capital base with a 700 million euro securities repurchasing. Germany's second biggest bank has been told it needs more than 5 billion euros of fresh funds to meet new international laws aimed at keeping banks solvent. The German government is also offering help by reactivating an emergency fund with a lending capacity of up to 500 million euros.
The Brazilian government is suing Chevron and Transocean for more than $10 billion and demanding that both companies leave the country following an oil spill off the Brazilian coastline last month. Around 3,000 barrels leaked while the companies were drilling an undersea well near Rio de Janeiro. Prosecutors claim both firms had shown a lack of planning and environmental management. Both companies say they haven't yet been notified about the case.
And China has opened up a new front in its trade war with the US. Authorities are imposing duties of 22% on large cars made by brands like Cadillac and Jeep on top of an existing 25% tariff. Beijing claims the cars are being dumped on its market. And just before we go, Real Madrid manager Jose Mourinho is looking to score with an even wider audience.
Not a man, he's one of the best paid football managers in the world. Not a man that perhaps needs any extra cash, but he's probably going to get a little windfall. This is because Jose Mourinho is going to be turned into a cartoon character. This is a project in development in Portugal. It's going to be called Mourinho and the Special Ones. The company Sports Star Media has spent around a year securing the rights to this deal to cartoonise, I'm not sure that's a word, but I just made it one, or put into a cartoon, I should say, the Real Madrid manager. He's going to get the usual royalties and a flat fee. The company behind it is also hoping to float as well, raise around £2 million in an IPO to fund this. Of course, this whole thing is tapping into a global sports merchandising market estimated at some 20 billion euros. So these people plus Real Madrid are going to get a slice of that.
I can just imagine the voiceover. Faster than a speeding footballer, Super Mourinho. Maybe.
Has this man got a new job suddenly?
Yeah. I'm off. Owen's off as well. More news coming up really shortly. Tom's here, in fact, today, after the break.
Hidden in the Himalayas, Parvati Valley reeks of marijuana, with cannabis fields as far as the eye can see. Hemp drives the local economy and supports the valley's farmers. The valley's famous for producing some of the best hashish in the world. But now, it is being targeted by the police. In this land where cannabis is king, France 24 followed the police in their war against drug traffickers and growers. Reporters, today, 9:45 p.m. Paris time, on France 24.
C'est une lutte mondiale que nous menons contre le changement climatique.
A simple act can change the world. With 1 million hectares planted in 10 years, the Republic of Congo shows the path to follow. Let's join them and plant a better future.